The culture that my Louisiana heritage is from has nearly everyone close. It is as if they are one. Aunts and uncles are closer to their nieces and nephews, often than parents are to their kids in what I grew up around, in different parts of the U.S. This is also true with cousins versus siblings. There's an amazing warmth in my Louisiana culture and an amazing lack of warmth in the realist communities or culture of modernism I grew up in. I have in other episodes made the distinction between magical realism and realism. Realism is black and white. This is primarily what I grew up in. Magical realism takes into account things that we don't understand. This can be seen in stories of magical realism dealing with the fantastic, exaggerated, and supernatural. My grandfather, uncles, and others in the generations before me told me tales like this. Louisiana is not perfect, and it's very violent, with a great deal of extreme poverty, but that is not how I experienced it. When I speak of my Louisiana community, it is of South Central Louisiana. It is a Creole and Cajun culture. These are small towns, farms, and swamps. The people who live there all have lineages in the area at least, going back 220 years. It is a lineage to northwest France, which includes Cajun French. Also, a mixture of African American, Native American, Spanish, and some Italian. Much of the Native American heritage is from tribes that were long ago destroyed. I've previously done episodes on the amazing Kingdom of Mali. The collapse of Mali brought the first African slaves to Louisiana. The Mali cultures, particularly the Bambara people, have a significant influence on my Louisiana culture, as do the other races and ethnicities I mentioned. Even if someone is 100% Anglo-Saxon from there, which is rare, they are likely related to nearly all the others in the area. The living conditions were extreme. The people were exceptional in learning how to live off the land in an inhospitable climate. Many of my relatives, even until now, live off the land. The land is often swampland, and the non-swamp land had poor soil for growing crops. Tilling the soil now makes a difference in non-swamp areas. This ability to live off the land to survive has produced a tremendous number of Special Force soldiers for the U.S. military. Many of my relatives have been engaged in this, including SEALs, Special Forces, Delta Force, Top Gun, Green Berets, Rangers, and CIA operatives. Louisiana is also the #1 state in percentage of population for producing players for the NFL, or National Football League. This is because the harshness of life. These people can live off the land with nothing. They don't need guns or knives, though they have them and are very good with them. They can fish with their bare hands and can easily capture alligators or poisonous snakes to eat. Some of them have shared with me their Special Force stories while they were in the military. They were often dropped behind enemy lines by themselves, or were dropped places to turn the locals into an army serving the U.S. intentions. My grandfather ran away from home at the age of 11. He thought it was time to see what places outside of Louisiana looked like. He lived off the land and would travel around the U.S. for 3 years. I don't think he spoke any English when he left, as the community only communicated in Creole and Cajun French. Bored after 3 years, he then lied about his age, stating he was 18, and at the age of 14, entered the Special Forces equivalent at the time in the U.S. Army. It was time to see the world. My grandfather had talks with me on how to survive. He told me There's a way to survive anywhere through anything. This mindset is what has allowed me to travel wherever I wanted to travel. He helped me develop a confidence. I used this confidence and mindset when I was challenged to survive in some of the most prohibitive places or through some of the most prohibitive of things. I'll do another episode on how my grandfather taught me to survive, as did some others in my family. By having an indestructible mindset, one becomes indestructible. What intrigues me, if it was the mindset that made a difference in survival, in athletics, doesn't mindset make a difference in everything? My grandfather was a simple man. I believe he made it to about 3rd grade. I don't believe my grandfather applied his survival mindset to life in general. That is, he didn't live a life that was indicative of someone who had seen and lived all he had by his mid-teens. My grandfather grew up very poor, and society convinced him that in life he wouldn't amount to much. Not at least beyond the abilities he had at a young age. I'm obviously very fond of my Louisiana culture, but I witnessed it from a distance. Until I was in my mid-20s, I had only visited Louisiana twice. Since then, I've visited multiple times. I've read a tremendous amount about it. I was accepted into a doctoral program on Louisiana studies by the person who knows more about the subject than anyone else. However, he wanted me to first be fluent in French. Earlier in my life, I would have enjoyed pursuing being fluent in French. I had by that time studied a number of Spanish records on Texas. I studied these because some of my lineage in Louisiana goes through Spanish Texas. I could read a fair amount of French, but to be fluent would take me maybe 2 years. What I wanted to do was to go to Seville, Spain, and study the records there. Spain controlled Louisiana from 1763 to 1802. The records of Louisiana kept by Spain are in Seville. It is my understanding those records have not been studied by someone who has an understanding of Louisiana. That is what I wanted to do. The director of the doctoral program seemed unpersuadable, and I gave up. Looking back on it, I probably should have been more tenacious, and I would have persuaded him to allow me to do what I wanted to do. I've spent a fair amount of time volunteering among disadvantaged children. It seems amazing to me how little I have to do to make a difference in their lives. I wanted to do this in Louisiana among my 2nd, 3rd, 4th cousins. That is to bring them along to a different level. However, family members, the generation and 2 before me, discouraged me from doing this. They knew my passions. They told me I didn't understand the establishment, how and why it had been established that way. That the establishment would strongly dislike what I was trying to do. The people who told me not to do this were people I respect very much, and are people who have no fear. But they didn't see a way for me to do what I wanted to do. I do realize it's possible the warnings I was given were wrong, and that nothing would have happened. It just complicated the whole thing. I suppose in a way, that is what I'm doing here, an indirect way to bring a different mindset to those who don't have it. I was told by an uncle through marriage, who was being truthful, that I was not part of the Louisiana culture. He was not trying to be unkind. I think he wanted me to understand. My cousins, uncles, aunts, and distant cousins were all as hospitable as I could ever want. But I was not one of them. When I was visiting, I would see glimpses of myself, things that I didn't see or understand about myself in the Anglo-Saxon or realist culture. The truth was, I could not be a significant part of their culture. I was too different. I had grown up in a culture that was very individualistic, or, as I've said, one of realism. I did not know how to be part of a communal culture. This was made even more complicated through the number of times I have moved, making me even more individualistic than I would otherwise be. The more one moves, the more one has to be independent, as each move requires that one create a new community. And because it is not long-lasting, or does not go back very far, it never reaches the depth it otherwise would. One then cannot count on it. Please subscribe and like, as this is how YouTube decides to send it on to others. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and see you in the next episode.